Oh no! Jesus!
Tonight, California is bracing for more dangerous surf this weekend, with emergency crews in coastal cities rushing to make sure they're ready. Millions in cities from Oregon down to Southern California now taking precautions ahead of another round of potentially life-threatening waves. Hello, I'm Brian Chung in for Gadi Schwartz, and you're watching Stay Tuned Now. A new storm is expected to move into Southern California tonight, bringing with it more rain and the same dangerous surf that left several people injured yesterday. The high surf battered parts of Ventura County. Most of the people hurt as the waves crashed were in a beachside hotel, where the rooms are completely destroyed and covered in sand, as you can see. The water's so deep in some places you could paddleboard down the street. Flood warnings remain in effect all along the coast as another even more dangerous swell is expected tomorrow. Waves could reach 15 to 30 feet in some areas. Beaches and harbors are now closed through Sunday in those harder hit areas like Ventura, where officials spent the day preparing for what's to come. NBC News correspondent Steve Patterson has more.
Tonight, terrifying, massive monster waves lashing the west coast. Look at the walls of water, some as high as 30 feet, exploding over seawalls, sparking widespread flooding, evacuations, and harrowing ocean rescues. The high surf causing at least 8 injuries in Ventura County, California alone, with crews racing to rescue 15 people swept into the sea.
This is supposed to protect us.
Colin Hogue was there filming that heart-pounding moment.
People were running and screaming. It was like an apocalyptic movie. I mean, I saw people being dragged down the street in the mud.
The water leaving streets soaked, and the area's battered beaches shut down.
And crews now racing to build this massive mile-long, 7-foot-high berm with the eye of the storm now focused on the north.
The waves, part of a storm system stirring up surf from the Bay Area all the way up to Washington. And in North Dakota, a state of emergency as freezing temperatures turn roads into rinks.
This is a street in front of my house. Look at him go. Oh my God.
Back in California, where the rough seas are a huge attraction for surfers, officials are worried.
We're asking people to stay away and stay out of the area for their safety and for ours.
A warning ahead of the next wave. Stay clear of the coast.
Steve Patterson joins me now from Ventura, California. So, Steve, what type of damage is expected with another potential wave coming tomorrow?
Yeah, with another cell hitting overnight, well into the morning, the damage could be widespread. It could be immense. And we're not just talking about property damage, although that is a risk. We're talking about risk to human life. There is still the potential 30-foot waves in some of the places along the coast. There's also the potential of coastal flooding and of drowning risk. That is still a huge potential with what's still ahead of us and the tide rolling in as early as about 10:30 tomorrow morning. Brian?
Steve, when it comes to the warnings that are out there, I see people still walking out on the beaches right behind you. So are they heeding the warnings with that another round of waves coming?
I would say we're on Ventura Beach, right? So things here, the storm has already kind of moved through. It is potentially areas near the Bay Area, near Santa Barbara, Oregon, Washington State, where people really need to be careful. Although we have seen video of surfers, they just need to know what they're doing, heed the warnings, and if they can, you really got to stay off the beach right now. Brian?
Steve Patterson, Ventura, California. Thanks so much. Appreciate it. Well, the new year is just a few days away, which means people are heading out in record numbers to ring in 2024. TSA is projecting today to be one of the busiest days for air travel this holiday week, expecting to screen more than 2.5 million passengers. It's already been a very busy travel week across the country. TSA screened more than 2.6 million passengers the past 3 days, so today may very likely exceed expectations. NBC News correspondent Sam Brock takes a look at tonight's travel conditions.
As American airports smash records with millions of travelers. Miami tonight, once again leading the nation in delays, according to FlightAware, with more than 300.
there's got to be more than just this line for this amount of people.
As the country copes with nearly 4,000 delays coast to coast. The Canes family trying to trek their way from South Florida through Texas to Tulsa.
Expect to leave on time, but it is flying commercially in 8 hours with 3 kids. So we're realistic. We're realistic. They're great, but we're realistic.
Florida airports appear to be particularly bustling. One woman in Orlando posting a time lapse of an astonishingly long security line. As the airport tells NBC News they're expecting record traffic during this holiday period. Meantime, Miami just broke an all-time record for daily travelers. As a triple whammy of high volume, weather, and short staffing in air traffic control has prompted the airlines to write this letter to the feds pleading for help in Florida. While in Chicago, crowds are a given, but passengers say it's largely been smooth.
It's been the regular experience I think that everyone else has, just trying to come home for the holidays.
With O'Hare in San Francisco, also among the nation's most delayed airports tonight.
Sam Brock, thanks so much. Well, tonight, aid groups in the Middle East are speaking out. The head of the UN's Agency for Palestinian Refugees is accusing Israeli soldiers of firing at an aid convoy in Gaza. The Gaza director for the relief agency saying the convoy was apparently leaving northern Gaza after delivering aid last night. The agency saying the Israeli army fired at the convoy as they were traveling along a route that the Israeli army itself had supposedly designated as safe. The director saying no one was injured, but a vehicle did sustain damage. The Israeli military has not responded to NBC's request for a comment. This happening as the attacks ramp up on refugee camps in central Gaza into the final days of what is now the deadliest year on record for Palestinians in the West Bank. The same UN agency recording 504 deaths this year, the most since it started counting in 2005. For now, thousands of Palestinians are migrating south. In the last week alone, roughly 100,000 people have relocated to Rafah, one of the most densely populated areas in Gaza.
Where am I supposed to go? Children were killed here. 26 people were killed here. I'm terrified. I'm scared, and the thought of me being killed or my other brother being killed just crossing my mind repeatedly. I already lost my older brother. I can't lose my younger brother. I have no one left. No one to look up to.
Meanwhile, the World Health Organization says infectious diseases are spreading quickly across Gaza. Since mid-October, there have been hundreds of thousands of cases of respiratory infections and diarrhea. NBC News correspondent Jay Gray has more from Tel Aviv.
Good evening. Intense fighting continues on the ground in central Gaza as well as a bit to the south. Han Yunis, the city hardest hit over the last 24 hours. The IDF saying that they are carrying out major operations for a prolonged period until all targets are met. To the north, airstrikes continue, and Hamas-run Palestinian health agency saying that a strike in Rafah has left as many as 20 dead. The IDF saying to the north that they have uncovered a Hamas headquarters inside a massive tunnel there. They identified that tunnel and the headquarters and destroyed it, they say. They continue to look for more of those tunnel networks that they say Hamas runs command and control from. Over the last 2 days, we know there have been widespread strikes by the IDF to the north. There's a continuing buildup of volleys between Hezbollah fighters and Israeli troops on the ground at the border with Lebanon. Fighter jets, tanks, heavy artillery used, the IDF says, to hit some of those Hezbollah targets, including rocket launchers and military posts. They say they are also working on the ground to push back some of those Hezbollah fighters from the border. That's the latest from here in Tel Aviv. I'm Jay Gray, NBC News.
Don't go anywhere. We're just getting started. Maine now joining Colorado in deeming that former President Donald Trump is disqualified from holding public office. We'll tell you what California's Secretary of State is now saying about the matter. Plus, he was fired from his role as a university chancellor over his porn career, but now he's fighting back. And a shark attack in Australia left a teenage surfer dead. All that is just ahead, so stay tuned. Welcome back. Here are some of the other headlines we're watching tonight. X, formerly known as Twitter, hit a bump in its effort to temporarily stop a California law requiring social media companies to disclose its content moderation practices. Today, a judge denying the motion filed by Elon Musk's company. Back in September, X sued California to undo the law, saying it violated free speech rights. In Las Vegas, a man fatally shot his mother, then stole a police cruiser and carjacked multiple people at gunpoint. Shot and killed one of them. The victim killed in the final carjacking was a 39-year-old father of 7 children. Police haven't identified the suspect, his mother, or a motive for the shooting. In Ohio, Republican Governor Mike DeWine has vetoed legislation that would have banned transgender youth from receiving gender-affirming care. The law would have also prohibited trans athletes from participating in girls' and women's sports at school. DeWine is one of only 2 Republican governors to veto a restriction on gender-affirming care. A federal judge has rejected Senator Bob Menendez's request to delay the start of jury selection for his bribery trial. The senator wanted the trial to begin in July, but the May 5th date will remain in place. Menendez faces trial alongside his wife and 3 businessmen for allegedly using his office to benefit the government of Egypt in exchange for gold bars, cash, and a luxury car. And as we wrap up the year, the U.S. is on track to see a record drop in homicides. Other forms of violent crime like aggravated assault and robbery are set to see a decline as well. That, according to the FBI. On to 2024, where the question posed by some states is to be on the ballot or not to be, at least when it comes to Donald Trump and the primaries coming soon. California's Secretary of State has said she will not remove the former president from the ballot, citing complex legal issues. It comes the day after Maine removed him, citing a violation of the 14th Amendment related to his role in the January 6th insurrection at the Capitol. NBC News Capitol Hill correspondent Ryan Nobles has more.
For the second time in 2 weeks, a state has ruled that Donald Trump is ineligible to run for president of the United States.
It was not a close call on the question of whether January 6, 2021 was an insurrection. The events of January 6, 2021 were unprecedented and tragic.
Sheena Bellows, the Secretary of State in Maine, a Democrat, determined that Trump's actions on January 6th constitute a violation of the 14th Amendment. The weight of the evidence makes clear that Mr. Trump was aware of the tinder laid by his multi-month effort to delegitimize a Democratic election and then chose to light a match, she wrote. The decision in Maine is similar to one in Colorado, and in both cases, the ruling won't go into effect until the appeals process is exhausted, meaning Trump will remain on the ballot for now. The Trump campaign promised to appeal and called the decision hyper-partisan. His GOP opponents agreed.
That turns on its head every notion of constitutional due process.
There are similar challenges playing out in states across the country. 4 other states, including Arizona, Minnesota, Michigan, and now California, have determined that Trump can stay on the ballot. Maine's Democratic Congressman Jared Golden, who voted to impeach Trump, argued removing him from the ballot is a mistake. Until he is actually found guilty of the crime of insurrection, he should be allowed on the ballot, he said in a statement. It also opens the door for the Trump campaign to raise money and fire up his base.
It makes him a martyr. You know, he's very good at playing poor me, poor me. He's always complaining.
The timing means that Trump will remain on the ballot for the primaries, but it is setting up a showdown in the U.S. Supreme Court, which will likely have the final say.
Ryan Nobles, thanks so much. Well, it's not every day you get a candidate running for office who tells you smack dab in the middle of that campaign that she cannot win. But that's basically the campaign slogan for Kate Barr, who is running for state senate in North Carolina. And that's just part of the story. NBC News correspondent Gary Grumbach explains.
Kate Compton Barr is a mom, a behavioral scientist, and a self-described loser in politics.
We are super excited to run for Senate District 37 in North Carolina, to be the senator for this district, but also that I will absolutely not win it.
Barr, a Democrat who lives in Davidson, North Carolina, decided to run for state senate after seeing the impacts of Republican gerrymandering on her hometown. Her previously safe blue district now likely to be controlled by Republicans.
They drew the district lines to ensure that they could maintain as much political power as possible with as little competition as possible.
With the odds against her, Barr is running with the slogan, clear eyes, full heart, can't win.
Voters deserve a choice. We have been gerrymandered out of having a choice about who can represent us, but we still need to have 2 names on a ballot. Otherwise, when you show up to vote, all you have is one person.
She's running an unusual campaign.
You're not asking anybody to donate?
No.
You don't want their money?
No. If you send me your money and I can spend it on something, sure, but I also will donate it to campaigns where people can win. I don't need the money. The whole point of this is to get the message out that voters deserve a choice and competition is good for democracy.
Her Republican opponent, incumbent state Senator Vicky Sawyer, telling NBC News in a statement, shifting the blame to the so-called gerrymandered districts is just another attempt to divert the public's attention away from the problem within the Democratic Party connecting to communities outside of big cities. Dr. Michael Bitzer, an author and professor of politics at Catawba College, says it's not just District 37.
I think it is certainly one of the most advantaged Republican maps that we've seen in some time.
Bitzer says this is an example of why elections matter at every level.
It is indeed to the victor goes the spoils, and the opportunity to draw these districts based on where people have already sorted themselves is very much within the gameplay of we want power, we want to control political power. This is the best way to do it.
But a federal lawsuit filed by the North Carolina NAACP this month alleges it's not just partisan gerrymandering going on across the state, but racial gerrymandering too.
People are losing their vote because they are Black in this state. It's nothing new. Some people within this country do not wish to recognize and validate the Black vote to be what it is.
The lawsuit alleges the Republican-controlled legislature redrew the districts, quote, for the very purpose of diluting and diminishing the voting power of North Carolina's Black voters. While this lawsuit won't impact the maps in the 2024 election, the North Carolina NAACP argues the maps should be redrawn ahead of the 2026 midterms. NBC News has reached out to the Republican state lawmakers named in this lawsuit and have not heard back. Back in Davidson, Barr says this whole experience has been a learning opportunity for her children.
To see what it's like to show up and work hard and do something purely for the principle of the thing.
So what if you win, Kate?
I love that hypothetical oh so much, and I certainly wish that I could represent this district. It won't happen.
Gary Grumbach, NBC News, Davidson, North Carolina.
Well, it's one of the biggest stories of the year, magic weight loss drugs like Ozempic. But as demand for the diabetes medication grows, so is the number of counterfeit versions on the market. Now the FDA is warning people to watch out. NBC News correspondent Stephanie Gosk has more.
Demand for diabetes and weight loss medications like Ozempic and Wegovy exploded this year, many posting progress on social media.
I am down 60 whole pounds.
2024 is set to be no different, as more and more people embrace the dramatically successful medications to shed pounds, including most recently Oprah. But as demand grows, so do concerns about counterfeits. Partnership for Safe Medicines confirms to NBC News that fake versions of this class of drugs have been discovered in over a dozen countries, including the U.S. Last week, the FDA, together with the makers of Ozempic, Novo Nordisk, announced that counterfeit versions of the diabetes drug made it into the U.S. market, releasing the batch codes to the public. According to the company, the needles inside the boxes were also counterfeit and posed a potential risk of infection. So far, there have been no serious side effects from the fakes. The FDA warns the counterfeits could still be in the supply chain.
How are people supposed to be able to tell the difference?
Yeah, it's very hard to tell the difference. If you're accessing the product from a place that is not legitimate, like an online pharmacy, or not through your healthcare professional, that's probably the highest risk for being exposed to a counterfeit drug.
Experts say counterfeiters are stepping in to fill a void. According to the FDA, semaglutide, the active ingredient used in Ozempic and Wegovy, has been in short supply since March of 2022.
We have a global supply chain. We have medicines coming from everywhere. And a lot of times when these products are in high demand, there are counterfeiters who want to make money off of them.
Stephanie Goss, thank you so much. Well, coming up, the scandal rocking a college in Wisconsin. A chancellor was fired after the university found out that he and his wife made pornographic videos. Well, now the couple is fighting back. We have the details. But first, you got to see this. A small Spanish town staging a fake coup. You can see people hurling flour and eggs at each other. It's an annual festival dating back 2 centuries, and it happens every December 28th to mark the Day of the Holy Innocents. And get this, the day starts off with taking over the mayor's office, where they establish fake and absurd laws. People who break the laws actually have to pay up, but the money goes to charity. Looks like fun, at least for habitual line steppers, maybe. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Let's take a quick look around the world. An avalanche kills a woman and her son in the French Alps. In the Mont Blanc mountain range, the two were reportedly part of a group skiing outside a designated area with an instructor when the avalanche happened yesterday, which measured some 1,300 feet wide. Officials in the region say dozens of rescuers searched for trapped skiers, finding a man and a woman dead and 1 person injured, but they were able to rescue 5 others. Venezuela has engaged in a defensive military exercise near the border with Guyana. President Nicolas Maduro says he's reacting to Britain sending a warship to Guyana, which is a former British colony. Venezuela and Guyana are in the middle of a land dispute, and Venezuela has asked Guyana to, quote, refrain from involving military powers in the territorial controversy. A shark attack kills a 15-year-old in Australia. Witnesses say the shark ripped off the boy's leg as his father watched. The boy was brought to shore, but emergency crews were unable to save him. Yesterday's attack was the 3rd deadly shark encounter in waters off South Australia in recent months. And a gas tanker explosion kills at least 40 people in Liberia, but the country's health minister says that number is expected to rise. It happened earlier this week. Local reports say the tanker overturned while trying to pass another car on the road, and as people were rushing to grab fuel from the overturned tanker, it exploded. More than 100 Russian missile and drone attacks bombarded Ukraine seemingly nonstop this morning, hitting everything from schools to factories to hospitals. Ukrainian officials say the attacks strained their air defense systems as the barrage rained down from Lviv in the west to Kharkiv in the east. NBC News foreign correspondent Matt Bradley has more.
Tonight, Ukraine is reeling from what it says is Russia's biggest aerial attack yet. Ukraine's president saying 158 missiles and drones swarmed out across the country this morning, leaving dozens dead, more than 100 injured, and reminding Ukrainians that not even the holiday season is sacred. The joy of the holidays is what it is, said this woman in Kyiv. Joy on the face, but tears and pain inside. In Kharkiv, rescuers pulled an elderly man out from under rubble. He was alive. Russia announced today that it had launched one massive attack, striking military and industrial facilities and ammunition storage sites. But many of today's strikes hit civilian targets. An apartment building in Odessa, a huge shopping center in Dnipro, and a kitchen in Kyiv, fresh from holiday cooking. No one was killed or injured at this maternity hospital in Dnipro. These nurses said they were able to rush mothers and babies to a shelter. But as Russia's invasion approaches the 2-year mark, the U.S. Congress just sent its last $250 million to help Ukraine. Some Republican lawmakers have resisted giving more aid. The Biden administration today urged Congress to step up, as the U.S. Embassy in Kyiv warned Russia may increase its airstrikes over the New Year's holiday, heaping more nightmares on a holiday season already spoiled by war. Matt Bradley, NBC News.
Welcome back. Time now for the future of everything. Tonight, we're highlighting a new push by a nonprofit to bring more Latinas into the workforce, which has big tech companies taking notice. NBC News Now anchor Morgan Radford has more.
For these high school and middle school students in Austin, Texas,
ready, set, go.
The gears are turning.
So these are robots that you all build?
Yes. Yes.
All thanks to a nonprofit called Latinas, which teaches tech skills like coding and engineering through camps and after-school clubs like this one, hoping to close the ethnic and gender gap in technology.
Do you all see a lot of Latinas in tech? Do you think people expect to see Latinas in tech?
No.
No? Why not?
Because they see more guys instead of girls, especially like Latinas.
Even though Hispanic workers make up 17% of all employees, just 8% are working in STEM fields, and only 3% of those workers are Hispanic women.
We're hearing from students who didn't know that these careers were possible.
Students like Camila Godinez, who attended their Code Chica camp just 3 years ago. Now she's studying computer science in college and earning a living with a job in information technology.
Somebody has told me that I couldn't make it in this field, and I remember telling my mom about it.
Okay, so let me just back this up. You wanted to do computer science?
Yes.
And someone told you...
that I wasn't able to do it.
Because...
for who I am as a person and also for being a woman.
And then what did you think when you met other Latinas who were doing coding, who were doing robotics?
Seeing women like me, Latinitas, it was so inspiring. It made me just want to keep doing computer science.
And keep cracking the code to create a tech future for everyone. Morgan Radford, NBC News, Austin.
And as we head into this New Year's weekend, cities across the country are on heightened security alerts. Here in New York, the police are using some eyes in the sky to make sure it will be a safe celebration. NBC correspondent Erin McLaughlin reports live from Times Square.
2, 1. Tonight, Times Square just about ready to ring in the new year. City officials insist security is all set to handle a crowd in the hundreds of thousands.
There are no specific threats to the city.
Even so, with thousands of officers deployed, they say they're expanding the zone to be blocked off.
We will be out here with our canines, our horsebacks, our drones, our helicopters, our boats.
This year's ball drop amidst increasing tension over the Israel-Hamas war. Protesters taking aim at New York's holiday season, having already interrupted the city's Christmas celebrations and Thanksgiving parade.
We're prepared for them at any number.
Tonight overseas, the FBI revealing they've arrested a man from New Jersey. Following the October 7th terror attack in Israel, they allege the 23-year-old tried to join a known foreign terror organization to attack the United States. This following last year's Times Square machete attack targeting 2 police on New Year's Eve. Tonight, law enforcement especially wary of the so-called lone wolf.
Someone that's sitting alone in their basement, watching videos, getting filled with hate, and just decides, today's the day I'm going to do something.
Across the country, in Las Vegas, a low-altitude helicopter buzzing over the Strip, checking for radioactive contamination. Tonight, America's largest cities taking no chances, with that delicate balance between security,
welcome 2024,
and celebration.
Erin McLaughlin, thanks so much. Well, that does it for us tonight. I'm Brian Chung. We'll see you on Monday, but until then, stay tuned now and have a great and happy New Year.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.